low to the body. You see Canelo, you see Justin do it. They go low to the body and go high. You see that shot? One, boom. So I was doing this right, like you. The boxing way is, a lot of people do this in boxing. They step forward, yeah? You jumped in. So then you jumped in and then you're here. You're right here. So I'm just doing the simplest.
UFC is more advanced than boxing. Boxers get paid more money, but the entity of the UFC, billion.
The Notorious One just dropped a bombshell that has the entire MMA world losing its collective mind. Conor McGregor claims he's negotiating directly with the United States government for a fight at the White House. And while half the internet thinks he's completely lost it, the other half is already buying tickets. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just about one fighter's wild claims. This is about whether the biggest star in combat sports history still has what it takes, or if we're watching a legend slowly destroy his own legacy in real time.
Tough street type, custom auto train. It's all a gimmick. It's real, but it's a gimmick. Look at Conor McGregor.
Daniel Cormier just threw some serious shade at McGregor's comeback plans, and honestly, DC might be onto something here. The former two-division champion pointed out something that's been eating at fight fans for years. Ever since McGregor made that insane money from the Floyd Mayweather circus show, followed by that record-breaking payday against Khabib, the hunger just isn't the same. We're talking about a guy who went from sleeping on friends' couches in Dublin to making over $100 million in a single night. Cormier specifically called out how McGregor looked completely gassed and broken after those brutal grappling exchanges with Khabib. And here's the kicker. That was back in 2018, when McGregor was supposedly still in his prime. Now we're supposed to believe he can hang with the absolute killers at the top of the lightweight division. DC's not buying it, and after watching McGregor get finished by Dustin Poirier twice in a row, a lot of fans are starting to agree.
The gimmick. He's crazy, he's bold, a gimmick. Real life, he's a beautiful guy, you know?
Yeah.
But you have to have a gimmick.
What sells tickets, put us in seats.
Put them butts in the seat.
Yeah.
That's a scary one for fighters, too, because the thrill of cocaine, for some reason, is exciting to people who love, like, exciting things. Like, there's something about fighters or adrenaline junkies that like to be pumped up. And, yeah, Conor seems to enjoy it, which is one of the things that makes me think he probably won't come back. But if he does come back, it's got to be now. You know, again, at 36 years old, now. Paddy Pimblett. That's the fight.
That's going to be a big fight.
Big fight.
Yeah.
But I don't even think Conor's in the drug testing pool anymore.
No?
You don't think so? I don't believe so.
I'm currently in the negotiation stage. The opponents, there are multiple opponents on the platform. Of course, I would love to get that one back. I felt I went into his round, and I felt handy early on. He had to wait for me to get tired.
I do have a little bit of a concern with Conor. I do. The words that Conor used are not true. Conor is not negotiating with the United States government. Nor has he ever. Nor will he ever. If you were to ask Conor McGregor the phone number to the United States government, he would not be able to produce it. Just for example, this is not real. But the voice in which Conor did the spoof interview is also not Conor's natural speaking voice. He's doing more and more interviews with this new voice. I enjoy Conor's voice. I like when Conor talks to you. The Macho Man, Randy Savage. Yeah, oh yeah. See, over time, he forgot that this wasn't his actual voice. Yeah, the people that know him. The people that know him say that he started to answer the telephone. He started to answer the telephone with this voice. And the people would say to him, Larry, why are you speaking like that? And he would say, I'm trying to stay into character at all times. This is how you become good at it. This is how you become good at the gimmick.
But hold up, because Chael Sonnen sees this whole situation completely differently, and the American gangster always has a unique perspective that cuts through the noise. While DC is questioning whether McGregor still has that fire, Sonnen is focused on something way more interesting. The fact that McGregor shows absolutely zero interest in running back that Trilogy fight with Dustin Poirier. Think about that for a second. Poirier has beaten him twice, finished him with strikes, then broke his leg. Any normal fighter would be obsessed with getting that win back, proving they could overcome their demons. But McGregor, He's talking about fighting at the White House instead. Sonnen believes this is actually brilliant strategy. Why get stuck relitigating the past when you can create an entirely new narrative? The White House card isn't about settling old scores or proving you can beat the guys who already beat you. It's about writing a completely fresh chapter and grabbing headlines that transcend sports entirely.
At the end of the day, you know, people keep talking about the belts and whatever and this and that, and you know, this guy's gonna fight. They're saying that he can fight Floyd. He's getting ready for Floyd or whatever. And I think the division has moved on. You know, this whole Floyd Mayweather talk and him making 50 mil or 75 mil, whatever the talk is. Like, would you guys come back to MMA after a fight like that? Like, you know, like this guy, you know, Conor should be proud, you know. Everybody tells us, oh, he's a champ, blah, blah, blah. Like, he should be proud, you know. Conor was a champ, you know. He should hold his belt. He should hold his belt up high and proud, you know. And at the end of the day, he's the 2015 champ, you know. This is 2 years later already, and he never ever once talked about defending the 45 belt ever. Not ever. He not ever once talked about it. He talked about defending the 55 belt more than the 45 belt, you know. It's time to move on from this.
Now here's where things get really interesting. Because Demetrius, Mighty Mouse, Johnson just called out the entire premise of giving McGregor this kind of platform, and his argument is absolutely devastating. Johnson, who many consider the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time, believes that big names shouldn't automatically get handed opportunities just because they're famous. He's talking about fighters like John Jones and McGregor getting main event slots while guys who are actively competing, winning fights and climbing rankings get pushed to the side. And you know what? He's got a point. While McGregor's been posting workout videos on Instagram and talking about fighting politicians, guys like Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, and Justin Gaethje have been putting their bodies on the line every few months, facing the absolute best competition in the world. Johnson's argument is simple. If you want to be treated like an active fighter, you need to actually fight. Celebrity status shouldn't guarantee you a spot ahead of people who are earning their opportunities the hard way.
You're at the White House.
Man, it's over. Bro.
It's over for him?
It's over, dog. Conor McGregor.
He made too much money, huh?
He made way too much. He sold that liquor for what, 500 million?
Yeah, he got 100 million.
But here's where the story takes a wild turn, because Brendan Schaub just completely torched McGregor's credibility, and he didn't hold back at all. Schaub flat out said he doesn't believe a single word about McGregor negotiating with the government for this White House fight. He pointed out that in recent interviews, McGregor sounds nothing like his old charismatic self. Instead, he's rambling about government connections and making claims that sound completely detached from reality. Here's the really fascinating part. McGregor himself has compared his situation to professional wrestlers who play a character for so long that they start believing their own act. Schaub thinks that's exactly what's happening here. The notorious persona that made McGregor famous was supposed to be an act, a way to sell fights and build his brand. But after years of living that character, the lines between Conor McGregor the person and Conor McGregor the performer have completely blurred. Now we're watching someone who might actually believe his own hype, even when it involves claiming he can set up fights with world governments.
Fighting Floyd, then he was doing pay-per-views like nothing. Yeah. And him and Khabib did 2.5 million pay-per-views. Him and Khabib was the best.
Did you think he was just one-dimensional?
And get this, Chael Sonnen doubled down on his criticism, specifically targeting McGregor's grandiose claims about government involvement and national symbolism. Sonnen acknowledged that McGregor is still the biggest draw in the sport, still the guy who can guarantee the highest pay-per-view numbers and sell out any arena in the world. But he questioned whether building an entire event around what he called a not true peril makes any sense. Here's what Sonnen means by that. When a fighter starts believing their own manufactured storylines, when they can't separate the character from reality, they become what's known as a peril in entertainment terms. It's the point where the act becomes dangerous because the performer has lost touch with what's real. Sonnen suggested that instead of chasing these fantasy matchups and impossible venues, McGregor should focus on fights that actually make sense, like facing Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone in a fun, winnable matchup that would make him look good and sell tons of tickets. The problem is, that's not the same as proving you can still compete with the absolute elite.
No. Or 1-on-1.
Yep.
I'm fighting for the championship next. I mean, that is the biggest fight in the world for me, for this division. It's the biggest fight that any of us could ever have. It's fighting for an undisputed gold championship belt. So there was nothing else that entertained me. If they came to me and said, you want to fight McGregor on the White House card instead, I would think about it.
Now listen to this part, because this is where everything gets real. We're not just talking about fun fights against aging veterans or favorable stylistic matchups. If McGregor wants to prove he's still elite, he needs to face the absolute killers at the top of the division. We're talking about guys like Islam Makhachev, the current lightweight champion who's on a completely different level than anyone McGregor has ever faced. Charles Oliveira, who has more finishes than anyone in UFC history and just ragdolled everyone in his path to the title. Justin Gaethje, whose leg kicks would probably end McGregor's night in the first round. And here's the most brutal part. Khabib Nurmagomedov laid out the reality perfectly when he said a fighter's true level depends entirely on who they choose to fight. Beat up Cowboy Cerrone and you look like a lion. Step in there with the real killers at the top, and you find out what you're really made of. For Khabib, the octagon isn't about making money or staying relevant. It's about finding out the truth, and the truth about McGregor might be something his fans aren't ready to hear.
Like, let's say John Jones comes back, he fights Johnson Almeida. He was like, you know what? I want to be on the White House card. What do I got to do? They're like, okay, you fight the winner of Volkov versus Johnson Almeida. Bet. And then he beats Johnson Almeida. And then it's okay, perfect. You're going to fight the winner of XYZ on the White House. Perfect. I'm all for it.
But wait, it gets even crazier, because Manny Pacquiao just threw his name into the mix, calling out McGregor for a potential White House showdown. This isn't just some random call-out from a retired boxer looking for one last payday. Pacquiao is a legitimate legend, a guy who conquered 8 different weight divisions and fought at the highest level for over 2 decades. His challenge comes with a deeper meaning too. It's a tribute to his friendship with Khabib and his genuine desire to see McGregor tested against world-class competition. What's wild is how every major name that calls out McGregor adds another layer of legitimacy to this White House concept. Whether it's real or not, whether the government is actually involved or not, the fact that legends like Pacquiao are willing to attach their names to it shows just how much star power McGregor still carries. Each call-out builds more anticipation, creates more headlines, and makes this supposed White House venue seem less like fantasy and more like something that could actually happen.
Iced is sitting there chilling. They get to pick and choose what they do. Maybe they earn that right. I have no idea, right? But for me, I want to see guys who are putting the fucking, rubber to the pavement. Whether and all the accomplishment John Jones has done, it's amazing. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that if we got guys who are on the roster who are fucking fighting their asses off, they should have the first dibs to get on the White House. Even for Conor, we don't need his ass on the White House, right?
Here's where Max Holloway dropped some serious truth bombs that nobody saw coming. The former featherweight champion brought up something that's been bothering hardcore fans for years. McGregor has never actually defended the 145-pound title that made him famous. Think about that. McGregor's entire legend is built on that incredible 2015 run where he knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds and became champion. But instead of defending the belt and proving he could stay at the top, he immediately moved up in weight to chase bigger money fights. Holloway believes McGregor should be proud of what he accomplished, but he also thinks it's time to stop living in the past and let the sport move forward naturally. Meanwhile, John Jones is getting hyped about potentially being part of this White House card, especially if it features a massive showdown between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje. Jones sees Topuria as the kind of explosive young talent that could lead an entire card, and the idea of that happening at such a unique venue has him genuinely excited. This perspective shows just how pivotal this White House concept could be for defining the sport's next generation of superstars.
They got some good things going, but I just don't want to see other athletes miss out on an opportunity that are fighting right.
And here's the kicker: Justin Gaethje just admitted that a potential fight with Ilia Topuria could be the most important bout of his entire career. Gaethje, who's never been one to back down from anyone, knows exactly what he's getting into. Topuria is an absolute savage, a young fighter with knockout power in both hands and the kind of confidence that only comes from never losing. Gaethje acknowledged that this would be a brutal, potentially 5-round war that would test everything he's learned in his career. Here's the really wild part. He even said that getting knocked out in a fight this big might be a sign that it's time to hang up the gloves. That's the level of stakes we're talking about. This isn't just another fight on another card. This is career-defining, legacy-cementing combat that could determine the future of the lightweight division. The fact that Gaethje is willing to put everything on the line shows just how much this White House concept has captured the imagination of elite fighters.
have a little bit of a concern with Conor. I do. The words that Conor used are not true. Conor is not negotiating with the United States government. Nor has he ever. Nor will he ever. If you were to ask Conor McGregor the phone number to the United States government, he would not be able to produce it. Just for example, this is not real. But the voice in which Conor did the spoof interview is also not Conor's natural speaking voice. He's doing more and more interviews with this new voice. I enjoy Conor's voice. I like when Conor talks to you. The Macho Man, Randy Savage. Yeah, oh yeah. See, over time, he forgot that this wasn't his actual voice. Yeah, the people that know him. The people that know him say that he started to answer the telephone. He started to answer the telephone with this voice. And the people would say to him, Larry, why are you speaking like that? And he would say, I'm trying to stay in the character at all times. This is how you become good at it. This is how you become good at the game.
But let's get real for a second, because Jon Anik just brought some much-needed perspective to this entire conversation. The veteran commentator acknowledged all the excitement around McGregor's potential return, but he raised some crucial questions about the actual quality of opponents being discussed. Anik pointed out that a fight based purely on name recognition, without any real relevance to the current title picture, wouldn't carry much weight in today's stacked lightweight division. He believes the real excitement would come from matchups that bring genuine drama and legitimate stakes, like a trilogy fight with Nate Diaz, or even a Legends bout against someone like Mauricio, Shogun, Rua. These are fights that would test McGregor's skills while also providing the kind of compelling storylines that casual fans can get invested in. It's about finding that sweet spot between spectacle and legitimate competition.
Turning for me, only from the perspective of the things that Conor has put out is impossible to match. There is no 100 golden visas. There is no significance to Conor fighting at the White House. Like, that's not an American. Just for example, he is the biggest draw in the sport. Conor always gets the biggest paycheck. He gets that because he brings in more eyes than anybody. But if his plan is to come out and vocally, through the media, let it be known that all the stops are being pulled on America's Independence Day for somebody who is not an American, it's not a good look. He's creating a scenario that can't happen. And as long as he knows this is a character performing, much like this new speaking voice that he's developed, if he's out there just working, we've got no problem. The problem only becomes if and when he marks out for his own gimmick, which most guys eventually do, because we are whoever we pretend to be.
Link the stakes straight to the White House agenda.
Meanwhile, Brendan Schaub laid out his vision for how this White House card should actually be structured, and his lineup is absolutely stacked. He's got Jon Jones in the main event spot, which makes perfect sense given that Jones is arguably the greatest fighter of all time and still actively competing at the highest level. Then McGregor facing Justin Gaethje in the co-main event, which would be an absolute war between McGregor's precision striking and Gaethje's devastating leg kicks and pressure. Schaub also mentioned potential fights like Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen, though he admitted those matchups might not generate the same level of mainstream excitement. His overall philosophy is that making this event legendary requires the perfect balance of big names and fights that will keep both hardcore fans and casual viewers completely glued to their screens from start to finish.
Okay, fight with Cowboy, be lion, and that's it, make money. If you want to become champion, if you want to fight like Beneil, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, these guys lions.
So here's where we stand right now. Conor McGregor is claiming he can set up fights with world governments. Legends from multiple combat sports are calling him out, and current champions are lining up for what could be the most unique venue in fighting history. Whether this White House card actually happens or not, whether McGregor still has what it takes to compete with today's elite, one thing is absolutely certain. the biggest star in combat sports history, is still capable of generating headlines and controversy like nobody else. The real question is whether we're watching the setup for an incredible comeback story or the final chapter of a legend who's lost touch with reality. What do you think happens next? Does McGregor actually make this White House fight happen? Or is this just another case of a former champion chasing impossible dreams? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Hit that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because this story is just getting started.
That you've been linked with over the years, and there was very big rumors about you and Conor McGregor. I know Umar Kremlev has said that he wants to maybe stage that fight one day in Russia. Do you think that would ever happen, you boxing Conor McGregor, or you having a crossover fight with Conor McGregor?
Oh yeah, that's possible also with Conor McGregor. Depends, but as long as I can still fight.
And then just final one from me, similar to Conor McGregor, have Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is of course a massive star in MMA and undefeated fighter. If you had the choice between fighting Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, who would you fight and why?
McGregor.
And why would it be McGregor and not Khabib?
Too much.
Do you prefer that?
I want to shut his mouth out.
Do you prefer that somebody like Khabib is very humble, is a very religious man? You prefer that type of person?
He's a nice guy. He's a nice person, humble, and that's an inspiration. A good role model for sports.
The deeper you dig into this White House situation, the more you realize we might be witnessing something way bigger than just another McGregor publicity stunt. Because here's what's really fascinating: multiple sources close to the UFC are now confirming that serious conversations are actually taking place behind closed doors. We're not talking about McGregor just tweeting wild claims from his mansion in Ireland. Industry insiders are saying there have been legitimate discussions about creating an entirely new type of sporting event that would blur the lines between entertainment, politics, and combat sports in ways we've never seen before. What makes this even more intriguing is how other major combat sports figures are suddenly changing their tune about McGregor's claims. Remember, just a few weeks ago, most people were laughing this off as pure fantasy. But now you've got promoters, managers, and even government officials starting to acknowledge that something unprecedented might actually be in the works. The logistics alone would be absolutely insane. Imagine the security requirements, the international media coverage, the diplomatic implications of hosting a combat sports event at one of the most important political buildings in the world. This isn't just about putting on a fight card. This is about creating a moment that would be talked about for decades. But here's where things get really wild, because Kamaru Usman just dropped his own perspective on what a McGregor comeback would actually look like in today's welterweight landscape. The former champion pointed out something that nobody's really discussing: McGregor's best path back to relevance might not be at lightweight at all. Usman believes McGregor should seriously consider moving up to 170 pounds, where his power would still be devastating, but the grappling-heavy style that destroyed him against Khabib is less dominant. Think about the potential matchups at welterweight. McGregor versus Colby Covington would be an absolute war of words leading up to the fight, with two of the best trash talkers in the sport going at each other for months. Or imagine McGregor against Jorge Masvidal, two guys who built their entire careers on spectacular knockouts and magnetic personalities. These are fights that would sell themselves without needing any government venues or fantasy storylines. And get this, Daniel Cormier just revealed some behind-the-scenes information that completely changes how we should view McGregor's current situation. According to DC, McGregor has been quietly working with some of the best coaches in the world, specifically focusing on the grappling deficiencies that cost him so badly in his recent losses. We're talking about legitimate wrestling coaches, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, and conditioning experts who specialize in helping strikers develop a complete ground game. Cormier mentioned that McGregor's team has been studying tape of his losses obsessively, breaking down every moment where his lack of grappling experience became a liability. The question is whether it's too late to develop those skills at the highest level, especially when you're in your mid-30s and haven't been actively competing for years. Now here's something that'll blow your mind. Nate Diaz just completely changed the conversation by suggesting that Jorge White House claims might actually be part of a much larger business strategy. Masvidal, who knows McGregor better than almost anyone after their 2 wars inside the octagon, believes this entire situation is about creating leverage for negotiations that have nothing to do with actual fighting. Think about it from a business perspective. If McGregor can convince people that he has connections powerful enough to set up fights at the White House, what does that do to his value in regular UFC negotiations? Suddenly, every conversation with Dana White becomes about whether the UFC can offer something as spectacular as what McGregor claims he can create independently. It's the ultimate power move, whether the White House fight is real or not. But wait, because Israel Adesanya just threw a completely different wrench into this whole discussion by questioning whether McGregor even wants to fight anymore, or if he's just addicted to the attention that comes with making outrageous claims. Adesanya pointed out that truly elite fighters don't spend years talking about potential fights. They actually book fights and show up to compete. He mentioned how McGregor's social media presence has become increasingly focused on everything except actual combat sports training and preparation. Instead of posting training footage or calling out specific opponents for realistic matchups, McGregor's timeline is filled with business ventures, lifestyle content, and these grandiose claims about government connections. Adesanya's theory is that McGregor has become so wealthy and comfortable that the actual pain and sacrifice required to compete at the highest level might not be worth it anymore, regardless of what he says publicly. Here's where Chael Sonnen dropped another bombshell that nobody saw coming. He revealed that several high-profile politicians have actually reached out to express interest in being involved with combat sports events. Sonnen wouldn't name specific names, but he hinted that the idea of mixing politics and fighting isn't as crazy as it sounds, especially in today's media landscape where attention is the most valuable currency. He pointed out that politicians are always looking for ways to connect with younger demographics, and combat sports represent one of the fastest-growing entertainment categories among the exact voters that political figures want to reach. The twist is that this might not be about McGregor having special government connections at all. It might be about politicians recognizing the promotional value of associating themselves with the biggest star in combat sports history. And here's something that'll completely change how you think about this situation. Michael Bisping just revealed that the UFC has been quietly exploring alternative venue options for major events, partly because traditional arenas and stadiums are becoming too predictable for the biggest stars in the sport. Bisping mentioned conversations he's had with UFC executives about creating truly unique experiences that would generate the kind of mainstream media coverage that transcends sports entirely. We're talking about events that would be covered by CNN, BBC, and major international news outlets, not just ESPN and combat sports websites. The White House concept, whether it's realistic or not, represents exactly the kind of thinking that could push the UFC into entirely new territory in terms of cultural relevance and global reach. Now get ready for this, because Tony Ferguson just completely destroyed the entire premise of giving McGregor special treatment, and his argument is absolutely brutal. Ferguson, who went on one of the most incredible winning streaks in UFC history before hitting a rough patch, believes that guys who have been consistently active and facing top competition should get priority over someone who's been talking more than fighting. Ferguson specifically called out how he's faced absolute killers like Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Michael Chandler, while McGregor has been posting workout videos on Instagram. He pointed out that real fighters prove themselves against the best available competition, not by creating fantasy scenarios involving government buildings and celebrity opponents. Ferguson's message is simple. If McGregor wants to be treated like an elite fighter, he needs to start acting like one by taking fights against people who can actually expose whether he's still capable of competing at the highest level. But here's where the story takes its most interesting turn yet, because Dana White just made some comments that suggest the UFC might actually be taking McGregor's White House claims more seriously than anyone expected. White mentioned in a recent interview that the UFC is always exploring unique opportunities to create events that nobody has ever seen before, and he specifically didn't rule out the possibility of working with government entities to create something unprecedented. Here's what's really fascinating. White has a history of making seemingly impossible events happen, from fighting on a private island during the pandemic to creating the Sphere experience in Las Vegas. If anyone in combat sports has the connections and resources to actually make a White House fight card happen, It would be Dana White working together with McGregor's star power and business connections. The craziest part about this entire situation is how it's revealing the current state of combat sports, where storylines and personalities have become just as important as actual fighting ability. Look at what's happening across different promotions. You've got YouTube celebrities headlining major boxing events, retired fighters coming back for massive paydays, and social media followings determining who gets title shots. McGregor's White House claims, whether they're real or not, represent the logical extreme of this trend. We're at a point where being able to generate headlines and capture public attention might be more valuable than being able to beat the best fighters in the world. The question is whether this is good for the sport long-term, or if we're watching combat sports turn into pure entertainment at the expense of legitimate athletic competition.